Hi, I'm going to share a story about my fear of snakes and how I decided that I was going to just get over this irrational fear. So one spring, I say to my husband and to my two sons, I'm going to get over my fear of snakes this year. And they all laughed at me. But I was determined. And I was confident that I could do this. It was about a week, maybe 2 weeks later. It was about 9:30 at night, and I decide that I'm going to go into the kitchen and get myself a glass of wine. And the lights are dimly lit, and there's a multicolored rug on the floor. And I go over and I get my glass, and then I reach for the bottle of wine, and I stop. And I went, what was that? And then I bent down a little closer to look at the floor, and I couldn't see it because, a smart person would have turned the light switch on. No, I just kept looking down and getting closer to the floor, and when I realized what it was, I jumped up, I went over the island in the kitchen, and in one more bound landed in the living room on the back of the couch with my feet tucked in under the cushion screaming, "Snake! Snake!" And my husband goes, "There's no snake." Bam! On the back of his head. He goes into the kitchen just like, oh. And he comes out, "You mean this thing?" It was a dead, cold garter snake, and it squeezed up between my toes. It took me another 2 weeks before I could walk in my house without socks or shoes. Now, I'm a barefoot kind of person, so I was serious. That was not a good deal. I started getting okay with I could take my socks off, I could take my shoes off, I'm walking around, I'm doing fine. But every snake in the county decided to show up and help me get over my fear of them. I'm not kidding you. I'm in the middle of a big parking lot. I get out of the car, and what's that right there at my door is a snake in the middle of a parking lot. I could pull into somebody's driveway and there's snakes basking on their rock walls. The snakes were everywhere. I have a lot of gardens. So I'm out there gardening and there's snakes everywhere. And I'm thinking, okay, Linda, you said you were going to get over the fear of snakes, and the only way you're going to do this is face your fear. Okay, I could do this. I started actually stopping and looking at them and going, well, look at you. Aren't you pretty? Look at those stripes. Oh, look at that line on your back. Oh, you're just so pretty. I'm actually talking to the snakes now. And they're still showing up in droves. By the end of the summer, I am now confident because I'm talking to the snakes. I'm up close. I won't pick one up, so don't ask me to do that. Haven't overcome that one. But at least I'm talking to them and I'm looking at them and they can slither past me. I'm okay. Life is good and I'm proud of myself. And then, one September afternoon, I'm in the kitchen and I'm preparing lunch for Gary and I, and I hear the cat trap open up in the door, and I kind of glance over, and there is my cat Sassy with this teeny little snake hanging out either side of her mouth. I mean, it is so little, it's just... Okay, I got a snake in the house, and it's the size of an angleworm. I run out of the house screaming, "Snake! Snake!" My husband is like 75 feet in the backyard, and he goes, "Is it alive?" "Yes!" I said, "Hurry!" And he goes, "Well, where's it gonna go?" "It's a snake in the house." Now he thinks that he was a track star. So you would think that somebody who knows how to run could move faster than a jog. There's a live snake in the house. Why are you jogging? And when I said this to him, he snickers. He deserved another slap, I believe. And now I'm sitting on the deck, literally, I'm hanging on the railing of the deck, and our deck is 6 feet off the ground, at least 6 feet off the ground. I'm sitting on the railing with my feet tucked around the base of the railing, going, "Get the snake!" He goes in, and he comes out holding this teeny weeny little brand new baby snake. The other cat, Spencer, my hero, literally put his paw on the head of the snake when Sassy let it go, and he was waiting for Gary to pick it up. See, cats are great pets, I'm telling you, except for Sassy, who just thought she could bring me anything. It was the following day. I looked at the cats, sat them down, and I said, I want to thank you for bringing me the snakes. I want to thank you for bringing me all those wonderful prizes that you bring me, dead or alive. I said, but from this moment on, there will be no more chipmunks, mice, flying squirrels, or snakes brought into the house, dead or alive. I appreciate it, but not in the house. And you know, after that, the cats never brought another animal in the house. Now, you would have to stand on before you opened up the patio door and step out, you would have to look because there was a pile of presents, but they never brought them into the house. So the moral of the story is, if you are adamant that you're going to get over something, that you're going to do something, be prepared, because it will come to you. Thank you.
I think it is an understatement to say that in today's political climate that some of us are feeling a little lost, waking up even with a little sense of dread with everything that's going on in the world and on the news, and trying to navigate through all of that to find answers is really difficult. I'm among those right now, feeling helpless, like there's something I need and want to do, but don't quite know how to do it or what it is that I need to do. I have a story that I'm going to tell you. It's a true story, and it is about my fear of being lost, among other fears as well. I get lost very, very easily. I am navigationally and directionally challenged. I have no sense of direction. So that's good to know when going into this story. I have dedicated a huge portion of my life to the early childhood profession, and for years I've enjoyed attending the Whitewater Early Childhood Conference, because it's just a great conference, motivational, inspirational, great ideas. You leave just feeling ready to go on Monday. And it was always so much fun. But in the past, I had always had other ladies with me, and we would be riding together, so they would navigate, and they would say, oh, Sherry, you should have turned there. Oh, I missed that. I had no idea it was supposed to turn there in the first place, but they would tell me, oh, you need to go back or go here. So it was no problem. So I always had people with me, and we'd laugh and we'd talk about things, and it was great. But the most recent year that I attended the conference, I couldn't seem to get anybody to go with me. It seems like people are getting tired of spending an entire day of their own time on their own dime to basically do more work when they've been working so hard all week. The early childhood profession can be pretty demanding. But anyway, after much cajoling and bribing, I couldn't find anybody. So I decided, I'm a big girl, I can do this. I'm going to go all by myself. But how? Because I get lost going around the block. Once, when we were first married, we live on Michigan Avenue, and my husband worked on 8th Street. I tried to take him to work, and if anybody is from Sheboygan, they'll know how that trip should take about 10 minutes tops there and back from Michigan Avenue to 8th Street. Well, I decided to turn myself around and go around the wrong way on the way home, and I ended up running into one-way streets and dead ends, and I ended up on the far north side of Sheboygan. About an hour later, I did find my way back home. So another time, or many times, I have been to or from Appleton to go shopping, and I can't seem to find my way back. To this day, I don't know how to get there on my own. But anyway, I've been lost many times, crying, upset, just fear, irrational fear. But anyway, one time I was with my mother. We had been shopping in Appleton, and my little daughter, Bethany, at the time was in her car seat, and she had been in that car seat for quite a while because the trip seemed to take a little longer when you're with me. And she was fine. And all of a sudden, my mom and I were talking. All of a sudden, my mother said, we're in De Pere. How did we get into De Pere? I said, I have no idea how we got into De Pere. We were talking. Oh my God, I start to panic. And as I start to panic, my daughter all of a sudden lets out a big wail. Ah! And she was fine up until that point, but she and I lost it at pretty much the same time. Anyway, so there's that experience, and there's been other experiences as well. But I thought, you know what? I can do this. My husband can draw me a beautiful map with pictures and everything, which he did. So he gave me this beautiful illustrated map, and I decided I was off to Whitewater. I had more than a little anxiety about it because of all of my problems in the past, but I thought, no, I can do this. I can do it. And so that morning, he gave me a kiss goodbye. He said, you can do this. Call me if you need to. I love you. I could just hear the music in the background from a romantic movie, a goodbye scene, you know. So I mustered all my courage, and I got in the car, and I had my Child Care Matters pin on and my water bottle and my I Teach Little Minds tote bag, and I was off. I made sure I had plenty of time to spare, so I was starting out early because if I got a little lost, I wanted to make sure I had enough time to figure out where I was, if that's possible. But anyway, so Alexa says it should take about 2 hours, but we'll see. So I was driving along, feeling pretty good. I was singing along to the radio, and I thought, you know what? You got this. It's a beautiful day. You're gonna do it. You rock. You're doing so great. I'm trying to, give myself this little upbeat speech, and all of a sudden I see a sign. I'm like, what does that say? Detour. No detours. I don't do detours. I don't do north, south, east, or west. I don't know where east is unless I can find the lake, and hopefully it's the right one. And I'm like, if they don't know, I don't know where I'm going. They don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to, so I attempt to take the tour, as my husband laughingly puts it. He thinks that makes life more interesting because life is about adventure, Anyway, so I take the tour, and I'm driving. I'm like, how am I going to get back to something I can relate to? I don't know where to turn. I don't know where to go. And in about 2 hours, and I'd already been driving an hour when I hit to the detour. So about 2 hours later, I get to Eden. That's where I ended up, in Eden. So I call my husband, and he said, how the H did you end up in Eden? I said, I don't know. There was a detour. So he said, you should maybe go to a gas station and ask for help. So here I had to address other fears, of feeling stupid, of ridicule, of being kidnapped. And I thought, truck drivers never get lost. Maybe if they don't want to rape and dismember me and leave my body on the side of the road, maybe they'll just show me how to get to Whitewater. You can always hope. I always think on the bright side. It's what I always say. So I walk to the gas station. I clear my throat. I walk in and I ask the attendant. I said, I'm lost. I need help. He hands me a map. I look at him like he's lost his mind. A map? I said, you don't understand. I don't do maps. I don't do road signs. I don't know one road from another or one highway from another. I can be driving along just fine and all of a sudden the road is something else and it curved the other way and I didn't know it, It's not fair to me. It doesn't seem fair to me that a road should be named one thing on one side and something else on the other. But anyway, I said, I just need help. At some point, the gas station attendant said, where are you trying to go? And I said, Whitewater. And he said, well, how the hell did you end up here? And at this point, I'm really panicking. I can feel my heart rate just speeding up. And I said, I don't know. If I knew that, I wouldn't be lost. Please help me. And I was trying to calm my breathing down. I could feel myself getting clammy. I knew any minute he was going to call people in white coats to take me away somewhere. So I was really trying to collect myself. So he gave me some directions and they must have been good because, wow, I did end up getting to the Whitewater conference. And I only missed a little bit of the first session. And I learned so much. It was such a great, awesome conference. I was so proud of myself. I was so excited. I did this. I was just so proud. And then at the end of the day, I got in my car and I panicked. And I thought, now I have to get back home. So how do I do this? I called Mark because I needed to.
Hi, I had planned to talk about an encounter I'd had with a really menacing bee, but I decided to save that for another podcast. Instead, I'm going to talk about another fear I've had. For people who used to know me, for people who know me now, they would be rather surprised to know that I used to be afraid of public speaking. In fact, any kind of public performance would make me have sweaty palms, my voice would quaver, and my knees would shake, literally. To realize that I went on to become a teacher, a workshop presenter, and a storyteller would have shocked almost anybody I knew back in the day, especially me. I don't remember much about my first public speaking experience, except I think I was about 10 years old and I was reading a poem that I had written. I stepped up to the microphone and I wasn't nervous at first, but as soon as I started reading, my knees started to shake. And they shook, and they shook. And I started thinking that I might not make it to the end of the poem and still be standing. Somehow I did manage to stay upright, but the next time I was in front of an audience, not only did my knees shake, but my voice quavered. It was almost as shaky as my knees. After that, I avoided public speaking. I also played piano as a kid, and I was in recitals now and then. But in those cases, I was seated and I didn't have to say anything. So that was good. Until one time when I played a song called Sagebrush Serenade. I loved the song and I played it so often at home I had it memorized. I'm sure my whole family had it memorized too. I sat down at the piano and I confidently started with the left hand introduction and then brought in the right hand. But immediately something was wrong. It didn't sound right. I took my right hand off and looked at it and I started over again. The left hand sounded fine, but as soon as I brought the right hand in again, it sounded wrong. This time I took both hands off the keyboard. I started again with my left hand and I knew immediately what I had done wrong. I had started playing too low. This time when I brought the right hand in, it sounded fine, and I was able to finish the song with no problem, but I was mortified that I had made such a terrible mistake. It was my last recital ever. I sang in choirs in church and in high school, and I went on to do some short plays in school and skits. In my senior year, I was the narrator for an all-school holiday skit. I wasn't nervous speaking in front of my schoolmates, but I couldn't imagine doing the same thing in front of a group of strangers. Surprisingly to some, I majored in music education in college. I sang in choirs with about 50 or 100 other students there, so no problem. And I never had to sing a solo recital. I did have to prepare some practice lessons, but doing those lessons for the young students at the university's elementary school was like talking in front of my schoolmates in high school. I was a little bit nervous in front of my professors, but not in front of the kids. My first years of teaching music went well. I sang with my students, and I gained experience and confidence talking to colleagues and parents. I knew my subject and I was confident in my ability. But I was also realistic in my limitations. After we moved from Illinois to Wisconsin, I became pregnant, and we decided that this was a good time to maybe take a pause from teaching and be a stay-at-home mom. After a couple of years, and with 2 young boys at home, I wanted to supplement my income, but not with a regular job. So I looked into another source of income. At the time, in-home party sales were popular, like Tupperware at Christmas around the world and Pampered Chef. The company I chose to work with sold needlework projects, and I loved to cross-stitch, embroidery, and do other needle crafts, so that was a natural for me. I signed up with someone I had recently met. She was going to be a manager soon, she hoped. Again, I'd be talking about something I knew well, so I felt confident as I set out on my first sales parties. More bookings followed, though that wasn't exactly my strongest skill as a sales rep. Otherwise, it was fun and not a bad way to make a few extra dollars. After a few months, there was a regional convention, and my soon-to-be manager asked me if I would like to talk to a small group at the convention about booking parties. Like I said, it wasn't my strongest skill, but my soon-to-be manager handed me some of the back issues of the company newsletters, and there were some tips in there about booking extra sales parties. So I could use that for some of my information. So I thought, well, small group of 25 people, that wouldn't be too bad. Nothing to worry about, right? Okay, so I could handle that. A week before the convention, I sent in my outline to the people organizing the convention, and they'd make the copies to give to the people. On the day of the convention, we arrived, and I went to register and asked where and when I would be meeting my group. I was told that I would be presenting in the large hall. I was a little surprised that they would use the large space for only 25 people, but I figured they knew what they were doing. I also asked where the copies for my outline were, and I was told that they'd already been put into the folders. That's when it dawned on me that I was going to be speaking not to 25 people, but that the large room was filled with over 200 people, most of whom were much more experienced than I was at getting bookings. I wasn't quite sure how to react or what to say to my soon-to-be manager, who was at that very moment getting the same information about her talk at the next table. She had volunteered to speak on a topic herself, and looking at her face and seeing the expression that she had on her face told me she was getting that same information and was just as surprised as I was that in a little more than an hour she was going to be giving her talk to a group 10 times larger than she had anticipated. My initial impulse to be angry with her for getting me into this predicament was tempered when I realized she was in the same boat. She was scheduled to speak during the slot right before mine, and I knew the material I had gathered. I felt confident, if not a little surprised at the size of the audience, and I decided that the best thing that I could do was keep calm and carry on. There was a wide podium where I was going to be standing, so no one would see my knees shake. But you know what? They didn't shake. I remember feeling very good after my talk, and I got positive feedback from several of the people in the audience, including some of the real managers that were there. A couple of years later, I decided it was time to go back to teaching. But first, I went back to school to get my early childhood certification. It was the best decision and the best job, next to being a stay-at-home mom. I ended up doing dozens of workshops at Early Childhood Conference in the years to come. I gave talks in front of hundreds of people all along eastern Wisconsin. I don't know if it was that surprise talk in front of over 200 people that was the turning point for me, but it did help me overcome my fear of public speaking. And since then, I've given solo songs in front of audiences. I've told stories on stage at numerous venues around town. I've also gone on to address the Common Council at our town. And now I'm doing this. I don't presume to give life advice on overcoming fear. I just know that being confident in what you know and what you believe in, that goes a long way to not having your knees shake or your voice quake when you talk. So my advice, go for it. Keep calm and carry on.
Remember, fear comes in many forms. Some rational, some irrational, some small and significant, and others larger than life. Some fears keep us safe, and other fears keep us captive. Sherry's fear of being lost, and yet she always finds her way home. Mary's fear of public speaking, and yet here she is. And my fear of snakes. Well, I was judging that snake from all the stories that I've heard, and it was irrational. For each of us, we faced our fear of no control. And we faced that fear and lived to tell the story with humor and with lessons learned.